Check 1, 2.
Okay.
All right.
Have your pocket or wherever that works for you.
Right.
And then we'll
Oh.
get this clipped right there.
Okay.
Excellent.
All right.
Obviously work
Yep. Yeah, I'm just going to have this. So this isn't on at all. Yeah.
Well, I'll need it for the.
Oh, you will. Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
We can push it off you now.
Okay.
And then I think you'll come grab this one for Q&A then.
Yeah.
I'm going to make sure that focus mic is on.
Yeah, it's off right now.
And we'll just turn it off right there. Anything else you guys need from me at the moment?
Do you have $1 million?
I don't.
Then no, I'm good.
I don't. What that would be.
How about 1,000?
Sure.
I'll take 1,000.
Hey, we'll be back here. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
When you're introducing, should I sit down, step off to the side? What?
That'd be brief, so I think if you just stand there.
Stand right here. Okay. Okay. Steve, do you all track demographics? So that is, how many women, how many males, year when they graduate. I mean, I know you know the year because I guess it's connected. The race and ethnicity of those who sign up for these.
We track engagement by race and ethnicity, but we haven't.
What is
drilled down
engagement by race and?
in terms of, we measure it by what we call go, give, help, and connect. So going to events either in person or online, giving financially. Help represents all the different ways you can volunteer your time.
Okay.
And then connect is like several things to make the network accurate and strong, like updating your contact info, downloading.
Oh, okay.
All
Okay.
those things.
I just meant for these specifically.
Yeah, it was a long answer. to
Oh,
that.
okay.
I haven't really drilled down, but I easily could.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you like to know about this one?
No, not necessarily. I mean, I have the names, and I know the names that I know their race and ethnicity. Of course, their gender. But I was just thinking, I wonder if you all do that as a sense of, well, are there certain types of talks or there are certain types of presentations which might attract more a certain demographic or more of a type of demographic as opposed to like an older or younger, or depending on how you define that, right? Or more women, more males, right? Or certain races and racial and ethnic groups, right? That it strikes me as that might be something that might be useful for you all, right? So if you're wanting to really connect with a demographic, say that graduated in the 80s, right? Might there be something or an instructor here who they might know, or some topical area that might interest them more than, say, a millennial? Not a millennial, because but someone who graduated in the 2000s, right?
Right. No, you're exactly right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just putting something out on Facebook here to encourage people to tune in.
Okay. So this is the Paw's Facebook page, or?
This is actually our alumni and friends.
Oh,
Facebook page.
oh,
We
okay,
have,
okay.
about 5,000
Wow.
likes there.
Okay.
I think it's a lot better than Twitter personally.
Well, actually, I know nothing about any of them. So I don't have Facebook. I don't have Twitter. I don't have Instagram. I just have Gmail. I guess so. All right. Hi.
You are going to get a very individualized
Yes.
presentation.
I'm Alyssa.
Okay.
Howard. I think we met one time, but
Okay.
I knew that, well, I finished my first year here.
Okay.
And I was in town, and I'm a musicologist.
Oh.
I wanted to see what you're up
All
to.
right.
What is going on? Is it being streamed for the alumni?
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
I'm Steve Sexual. I work
Oh,
in the
nice
alumni
to
office.
meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Dr. Oware, obviously. You
Yeah.
probably figured that out.
Yeah. Well, I just thought I'd come and.
Sure. It's absolutely great. I mean, there was an email sent out. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I figured there wouldn't be very.
Exactly.
But you deserve a live audience.
I appreciate that. You get extra credit.
Yes.
I don't really study.
Sure.
I didn't really study hip hop
Sure.
until I studied Broadway musicals. And
Oh, okay.
Before Hamilton, I didn't.
Ah.
But now I clean.
Right. There you go. Hamilton has done a lot.
I know.
Yes.
I brought these too.
Exactly. How's it going, sir?
Hey, man,
Good to see you.
yeah, this is an area that I need to be educated on, so I came to the right place.
I don't know about that, but I'll see what I have to say. Right?
You're going to enjoy this.
I am. So I.
There's people out there.
Yes, seeing the. So clearly, you've done this before, then.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, especially if you have
Former students.
students calling in.
Absolutely, and I was able to access the list of former students who signed up, and it's like, it's great.
Yeah.
So I actually have a couple of students who signed up who were here the very first semester I taught. So that's really neat. That's really neat.
Yeah, that's what I did. I had the questions, and I just wanted to have discussions with my students.
Exactly. What are you doing? Exactly. What are you up to? Right, yeah.
You done this before?
This is my first time doing this. Sure. Yeah.
Good evening. I'm Steve Setchell on behalf of the Alumni Office. I want to welcome you to tonight's session of the Virtual Alumni College. We're on the campus of DePaul University, where commencement occurred on a beautiful day just a few days ago on Sunday. The campus is quiet, but we're grateful to Dr. Matthew Oware for convening class for alumni tonight. Our topic is rap and masculinity. Dr. Matthew Oware is Associate Professor of Sociology and Chair of the Sociology and Anthropology Department at DePaul. He came to the university in 2001 after receiving his PhD from Indiana University in Bloomington. Dr. Oware teaches a variety of courses, including race and ethnic relations, contemporary society, social psychology, sociology of popular culture, sociology of hip-hop, and research methods. He received the Exemplary Teaching Award in 2008-09. His research includes analyses of the construction of multiracial identity, black masculinity and African American expressive culture, and the black family in American society. He has publications in the Journal of Contemporary Ethnography, Journal of Black Studies, Poetics, and the Journal of African American Studies, among others. His current project investigates authenticity claims in black popular cultural forms. So Dr. Oware, thank you very much for leading our talk tonight. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everyone. First, I want to thank Steve for inviting me to speak to you all about my research. I'm very excited by having the opportunity to do this. One of the reasons that I agreed to do this, not only because I get to talk about my research, is because I get to see, at least virtually, or hear maybe virtually via questions, from my former students. So actually what I want to do now, just a couple of minutes, is sort of acknowledge some of my former students. It won't be long. You can just consider it a shout out. But so I want to thank Chris Baker, although he's not a former student, Takia Brooks. So Takia was like the very first student, one of the very first students that I had my first semester here. So Takia, it's good to see that you're out there somewhere. Maggie, Brandon, how's it going, Brandon? Crystal, Camille, Tavares, Celia, Sarah Martinez, Dion, although Dion wasn't in my class, Kylie, Olivia. Won't be much longer now. I don't know all of these individuals. Rebecca Thompson, Coraline, Casey, and Yvonne Williams. And thank you for the others who have tuned in as well. But again, this is very exciting for me, having this opportunity. So I'm gonna do a little moving. I'm not gonna move much, but I just want to sort of set the context for my presentation. So when I was younger, I'm not gonna tell you my age, but when I was younger, I listened to rap music. Rap music was sort of the genre that was really becoming popular at the time. And I was enthralled by the message of the music, the socially conscious message of the music, by the exciting beats. So back then we used to refer to it as beats. The lingo may have changed now, but it was really something that drew me in as a high schooler, as a college person. But really, I didn't reflect and think about the music from a sociological perspective. I should say my area is, in fact, sociology. It was mentioned already, but I teach in the sociology department here. So just as I was sort of leaving graduate school, really establishing myself here at DePaul, I thought about this genre and how we can bring a sociological lens to it, right? How we can examine what is this genre, what are the artists saying about the culture that they live in. So this is kind of how I came to multiple projects. So actually what I'm talking to you today about, I'm sort of combining two papers that I've written. Specifically, the presentation today will focus on how do male artists talk about notions of friendship and camaraderie, and also how do these individuals talk about notions of, how do they present masculinity? How do they talk about fatherhood? How do they talk about raising their children, parenthood, etc.? So the name of, the title of the presentation is The Brother Who Loves: Complicating Hegemonic Masculinity and Rap Music. And some of you all may be aware of who these artists are. My hope is that everyone knows Kanye West. Everyone might not know Kanye West. The middle artist is called The Game, and then on the artist on the very end there is called Ludacris. But before I sort of dive into the presentation, I want to let you know that there is some graphic language in this presentation. So if there are kids at home, I know it's 6 o'clock, it's around dinner time. It's 6 o'clock here, it's around dinner time, and other places. So if you're in front of this or looking at your TV, looking at your screen, your computer screen with kids, please know that there's explicit language that we will see in some of the slides, right? My hope for you as an adult is that this isn't the first time you've come across this language. That is to say, some of the words that you might see, hopefully this isn't the first time for that. Okay, so I want to situate this research in a larger body of literature, specifically the literature on African American males. So generally speaking, there have been sort of two approaches to understanding the plight of urban African American or black males. One perspective comes from this sort of macro structural institutional perspective, and another comes from this more individualistic perspective to understanding the situations, the circumstances of African American males. So specifically looking at the research that focuses on these macro structural understandings of the situations of black males, we see in the literature that really in the 60s, 70s, 80s, we see deindustrialization happen in large numbers in urban centers. That is, you have jobs that are moving from the urban center either to other countries or to suburban areas, right? And these jobs didn't require post-secondary degrees. They didn't require college degrees. So really, individuals were able to make a middle-class living not having a college degree during this time. But with deindustrialization, it changes the urban center. And as jobs start leaving these communities, we see high rates of joblessness and high rates of unemployment developing in urban places like Chicago. What some of the literature talks about is that some of these individuals, to make a livelihood, they turn to illegal activities or gang-related activities. That may be selling drugs or engaging in other sort of illicit forms of behavior. And so some scholars talk about how that particular dynamic actually impacted relationships between African-American black males and black females, right? Some scholars say due to this situation, we see black males become more non-committal. That is, we see these increasing rates of marriage among the African-American community, with some men sort of engaging and having multiple sexual partners. So Oliver talks about how manhood gets redefined from being a provider of the family to becoming the player of women, right? And so these are sort of a macro structural understanding to the circumstances of black males, right? The loss of jobs impacts families, right? But then there are other more sort of individualistic perspectives for what we see happening with black males. And we have culture of poverty arguments, which essentially say the circumstances that black males find themselves in are their faults and their faults alone, like their behaviors, their actions, right? So Cosby, I know that's a, that's a touchy person to mention right now, but Cosby and Poussaint, in their book, they have a quote where they say, essentially black males, working class black males, are not holding up their end of the deal. Right? They're not doing their part to, in fact, become upwardly mobile, become successful. Juan Williams, in his book, echoes a similar sentiment. They're not doing enough black males aren't doing enough to help themselves. What's really interesting is then Senator Barack Obama, right, said when he was addressing the NAACP, said that, but if we are honest with ourselves, we'll admit that too many fathers are also missing from too many lives and too many homes. They have abandoned their responsibilities, acting like boys instead of men. You and I know how true this is in the African American community. We need fathers to realize that responsibility does not end at conception. We need them to realize that what makes you a man is not the ability to have a child, it's the courage to raise one. So it's this ethic of personal responsibility, right? So it's the individual action, the individual behaviors of these men that affect their success and mobility, right? So again, macro structural, and then these would be considered sort of micro structural claims for understanding the situations of urban black males. So there is some literature that talks about, well, what are these individuals saying about their situations themselves, right? So essentially black men in these situations in their own words. So there have been some researchers who find that custodial fathers actually express pride in their children. They wanted to be in the homes where their children stayed, right? But some of the problems dealt with dealing with the biological mother, who in many ways acted as a gatekeeper. That is to say, the mothers had the ability to prevent males from seeing their children or allowing them to see their children, right? Some of the literature talks about there was a combativeness between mothers and fathers, right? And also there are tensions around child support. That is to say, if black males, non-custodial fathers, didn't pay child support, then they were prevented or limited from seeing their children, right? And other researchers found that it was hard in some cases for biological fathers to deal with the new significant other that the mother had, right? And so we move from that literature to the literature that talks about, that focuses on black male rappers, right? And the reason that I'm choosing to focus on black male rappers is because many of them present themselves as representative of the urban black male scene, the urban black male community. That is, they say they are from inner city Chicago, or they're from the Bronx, or they're from these areas, right? So in many ways, they are representatives about the situations of individuals in these areas, right? And so as the research has found on rap music, it is typically misogynistic, right? The lyrics are rife with misogyny. And I have an example. I'm not going to read it, but I have an example for you up there of misogynic lyrics, right? It is typically hyper masculine, right? So you have 50 Cent, a rapper out of New York, who says, "You see me in the hood, I got at least 2 guns, I carry a Glock, Tony carry my M1." So like these are powerful weapons, right? So there's this sort of hyper-masculine motif, right? But my question, right, so even though rap music is saturated with hyper-masculinity, misogyny, sexism, homophobia, my question was, well, what do these artists, if at all, what do they say about fatherhood? What do they say about the family, their children, their parents, their mothers, or their friends, right? Is there any sort of, are there any lyrics that speak to that particular dynamic, right? And so that there's actually some previous literature that has looked into some of these things that I question. And so you see Tyree and Dyson in their research, they talk about how rappers speak highly of their biological mothers. Some of you all may be familiar with the artist Tupac. He's dead. I want to let you know he's not alive. So Tupac has this song called Dear Mama, right? It's an ode to his mother, right? And we see this with many other rappers as well, right? There are these odes to their mother, these tributes to their biological mothers. Yet, Weitzer and Kubrin found that rappers in their lyrics speak negatively of their biological fathers, the fact being their biological fathers were not around in their lives. And they also speak negatively. Tyree finds that these rappers in the sample that she looked at speak negative of their biological mothers or their baby mamas, right? So I wanted to sort of build from that. And so what I did was a systematic analysis of rap lyrics, looking for how do artists talk about fatherhood, motherhood, parenthood, and friends. So my methodology was a content analysis of platinum-selling rap albums from 2004 to 2009. So the total sample included 391 songs from 20 compact discs. And so these are the themes that, that I saw in that sample. So 13% of the lyrics from that sample reference the family. 9% of the lyrics reference biological mothers or talked about biological mothers. 8% talked about biological fathers. 7% talked about their children, biological children. And 4% talked about the biological mother or the baby mama. So what we see is these are a minority of the lyrics. For the most part, the lyrics were misogynistic, hypermasculine, sexist, etc. But we do see these other themes in the songs as well. So what I want to do is give you an example of what they're saying in reference to some of these themes. So the artists talk about putting their family first. So we see the artist T.I. in his CD called Paper Trail. He says, "All I got is the family, friends come and go, and with that understanding I put none before. My folk you know, enough to do the same I hope." So what he's really doing here is, first of all, he's letting us know that his family is important to him, but he's also letting the listener know, he's imploring the listener to understand that if you're wise, you will in fact put your family first as well. You will in fact see that your family should play a primary role in your lives, right? And so the next artist, Ludacris, from his CD Release Therapy, he says, listen, look, I got to feed my family by any means necessary, sort of drawing on this sort of Malcolm X kind of motif, right? So he's saying that I have to feed, my family is important to me. I have to feed them, and I'll do anything to do that, right, by any means necessary, right? And then, of course, Kanye West, he said, I bought my whole family whips, no Vovos. Of course, in typical Kanye fashion, what he's saying in this lyric is he buys his whole family fancy cars. So for him, a Volvo is not a fancy car. It's not a whip, right? But again, he's providing for his whole family, right? In Jay-Z, I find this lyric particularly compelling. So Jay-Z says, from his CD Kingdom Come, your baby boy's a made man. I'ma hold the fam down like 3 generations. I'm talking when spaceships everywhere, right, or everywhere. So what Jay-Z is doing here is really something interesting, right? So he's saying, not only am I going to take care of my immediate family, right, Beyonce and their child, I forget their child's name right now, but I'm also going to take care of family members that are 3 generations. I won't be alive, but I'll still be providing for those individuals, right? In his mind, when there's spaceships around, he'll still be providing for them, right? So I find that a particularly compelling lyric, right? And so how do the artists talk about their biological fathers, right? So for the most part, and again, in the lyrics and rappers' lyrics, they pay homage to their mothers. Not Eminem, but most rappers, black male rappers, they are paying homage to their mothers, right? And so how do they talk about their biological fathers? Well, it's mixed, is what I found. So we see an example from Nas, from his CD Streets Disciple, where he says, I might have ended up on the wrong side of the tracks if Pops wouldn't have pulled me back and said, yo, but Pops gave me the right type of tool to think with, books to read, like Malcolm X and stuff. He's saying his father was in his life. His father helped him grow up. His father gave him advice, right? His father pulled him aside, right? And he's thanking, in a way, he's thanking his father for doing this. But there are also artists that express negative feelings, right? So Young Buck, from his CD Straight Out of Cashville, says, my daddy's a dope fiend, a person who uses drugs, that's hooked on drugs. And I really don't miss him. Ain't seen him in 10 years, and he's still living, right? So here he's expressing antagonism, he's expressing frustration, but really I kind of want us to step, it does seem to be negative at the outright, but really I want us to think that he's expressing pain, right? So this person wasn't in his life. He says he doesn't miss him, but clearly he does. Right? He's noted the time that the individual has been out of his life, right? So it's really pain and frustration that he's reflecting on that's sort of coming out in this negative manner. Okay, so how do they talk about their children? Right? They embrace their roles as fathers, similarly to what we're seeing in the literature that focused on non-custodial fathers, right? So The Game says from his CD documentary, my son's ultrasound is the closest I've ever been to heaven. This is beautiful. I have like 2 boys. One is 11 and one is 7. And when they were born, I did not have like the gift of poetry to say that about them, right? Yet here's this guy saying, this is the closest that I've ever been to heaven, right? The ultrasound. It's absolutely beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And what's interesting is The Game is actually a member of a gang called the Bloods. Right? So there's the Bloods and the Crips. So the gang is a member of the Bloods. Yet he can still say this, right? Ludacris says on the song Do Your Time from Theater of the Mind, you're looking at a man that would die for his daughter just to let her breathe. Again, very beautiful, right? Very beautiful. And then Lil Wayne, who's still around and still quite popular, says, yeah, my daughter be the twinkle of my eye. You hurt her, you kill me, and I ain't about to die. See, y'all are at the ground. My daughter's in the sky. I swear I look in her face and I want to break out and fly. 4 tears in my face and you ain't never hear me cry. Again, right? Sort of this beautifully moving lyric to his daughter, right? And so many of the artists talk about their friends as family, right? So their friends aren't acquaintances. They aren't merely acquaintances. They aren't sort of these distant individuals. Their friends are their family, right? So back to Kanye West, he says, all my from the shy, that's my family dog. All my ain't my guys, that's my family dog. I feel like one day you'll understand me, dog. You can still love your man and be manly, dog. Really, Kanye is doing something interesting here. He's attempting to say, right, I'm not gay or homosexual because I'm tight with my homie, I'm tight with my friend. I'm still considered manly. I think it's still homophobic, but he's still attempting to say I can be close and still be defined as manly. Right? Young Jeezy says, one thing about it, I got love for you, homie. 2 things about it, I'll take a slug for you, homie. I'll actually be shot for you. Look at me now. Look at you now. You's a businessman. I'm proud of you. Handle your businessman. You like a brother I never had. Right? My friend is my brother, someone I'm very close with. And so Big Boy from Outkast says, Marcus, Jason, my little brother James, all my brothers from my mama, right, biological brothers. But Andre, his rapping mate, but Andre is just the same. He's saying Andre is just like his biological brothers. Ain't no uno, we a duo, deuce, dos, a pair, right? We're together, right? We're brothers, we're connected. Another theme that emerged was success by association. Specifically, the artist Ludacris says, my goal is to set my friends up to make some paper like me, right? Put them in positions to make their wishes come true. So they have multiple accounts that gain interest overnight. Given $1 million, what are you going to do, right? So he feels compelled to not only be successful for himself, to accrue money himself, but he feels compelled to put his friends in positions where, in fact, they can make money. So his success is not just his own. His success is his friends as well, right? And his point is, given $1 million, what are you going to do? You have to, from his perspective, you have to do this, right? And so Little Flip says, and since Will lean, I got to help him out. So I'm going to put him out. And when the stores sell out, that's when it's time to re-up. So keep your D cup, because we coming with the heat, man. And if you deal, make sure your friends eat, man, right? Again, if I'm doing well, then they have to do well, right? Success by association. Okay, so in conclusion, as I mentioned before, the songs are overwhelmingly, right, and this is verified and found in the literature, the songs are overwhelmingly misogynistic, sexist, and hyper-violent. But there are lyrics, right, that are pro-family, pro-mother, pro-father, pro-child, and pro-friend, right? And so I want to complicate our understanding of rappers. I want to complicate our understanding of urban males that we sort of generally get when we read newspapers or when we look at our TV screens. So we can understand black males and black male rappers as more than these sort of one-dimensional characters that we might see. We might think of them as decent but imperfect, right? They're more than caricatures of stereotypical black manhood. And what's really the point that I want to emphasize is there's sort of a juxtaposition with this hypermasculinity and misogyny with presenting oneself as caring, right, about mothers, about friends, about children, right? And so ultimately it complicates how we understand these individuals, and I think allows us to view them or understand them as humans just like the rest of us, right? And so with that, I am done. Thank you, and I will take questions.
Thank you, Dr. Oware. We have a few questions streaming in online, and we'll open it up for those of you here in Watson Forum as well, so have your questions ready. The first question, I think, comes from one of your former students, Kylie.
Hi, Kylie.
Class of 2003. She asks, what pressures or influences do you feel mainstream media put on current rap artists to produce quote-unquote radio quality lyrics that demoralize women?
Yeah. It's a great question, Kylie, great question. So I've actually done some research on this. I didn't talk about this here, but another piece of research that I've done is sort of looking at the lyrics of so-called underground rappers versus the lyrics of popular rappers. So the presentation that I presented to you today was on popular rappers. So I really wanted to look at, well, what are underground rappers saying? And unfortunately, it turns out that underground rappers are saying some of the same things that popular rappers are saying. But Kylie's point is well taken. There is a lot of pressure by record labels, by A&Rs, by corporate entities for rappers to say a certain type of message because this type of message or these types of lyrics sell. So violence sells, hypermasculinity sells, unfortunately misogyny sells, particularly in this genre. So there is a documentary that I show in my course, Sociology of Hip Hop, and in the documentary there's this rap artist who says, you know, I can rap about how there is sort of a water deficit in my community, but record labels don't want to hear that. So the thing that gets me a contract is if I rap about shooting someone or killing someone or degrading women, right? But what I wanted to do in this particular presentation is say, even though they talk about those things, they're still talking about these other things that are seemingly important to them that in fact don't sell, right? So it doesn't necessarily sell to talk about how you love your child. It doesn't necessarily sell to talk about how you have this complicated relationship with your father. But nevertheless, they're still inserting those messages, those lyrics, to a lesser degree in their lyrics. But Kylie's right. There's absolutely this push, and the research bears this out. There's this push by major record labels to present this black stereotypical image via this genre. I mean, we see this in movies as well.
Okay, next question. Chris Gore's class of 92.
All right.
Concerning the evolution of the content in songs relative to the age or success of the artist, how does this tend to change over time? That is, as an artist matures and becomes potentially more stable or more commercially successful, does this cause the content to harden or soften as the artist ages?
Yeah, this is a good question as well. So the prime example that I want to use to answer this question is Jay-Z, right? So you can imagine Jay-Z at 18, 19, 20, saying something different than what he's saying now. As a matter of fact, I've looked at Jay-Z lyrics over time, and they have in fact changed. Right? So now Jay-Z is talking about Beyonce, he's talking about his child. When Jay-Z was younger, he was talking about selling drugs. Jay-Z's in a different position now. He doesn't talk about selling drugs. As a matter of fact, he talks about his corporations. So I think maturity, in fact, does play a key role. If we look at the artist Eminem, when he first started off, he was hardcore misogynistic, hardcore hypermasculine. Some of that has softened, right? As I think it was Christopher. Yeah, I think the term that Christopher used, some of that has in fact softened, right? So Eminem, there's still bravado, there's still braggadocio, but it's not as much, right? So as artists age, I do think that you'll find that their lyrics change because their context change, right?
Dave Kramer, class of 1978.
78.
Yep. Dr. Oware, all of my white, wealthy, privileged sons emulated the rap culture. In addition to analysis of the music, can you comment on the draw to the men and women and contrast to the gangster fascination in clothing, emulating the Chicago mafioso heroes of the mid-20th century? Seems similar. What can we learn from the similarity?
That's absolutely right. So, and I think this really great comment, question. I think we really see this with gangster rap. So gangster rappers really took on this sort of, this facade after Scarface. So I'm not sure how many of you all out there in virtual reality or even here in the audience are familiar with Scarface the movie, but after that movie came out, every rapper made reference to Scarface, right? And what Scarface did, right? Guns became extremely more popular. Shooting, right? Semi-automatic weapons, right? So it is the sense of rappers, of the notion of this particular presentation of self, not necessarily originating in these communities, but drawing on other cultures as well. And I think we do see, right, via Scarface, some of this sort of mafioso, right, 20th century representations, right?
Right, Nicolette Johnson, class of 92.
Okay.
You're in Indianapolis.
Yes.
What is the larger societal impact of rap music's degradation of women, and African American women in particular?
Yeah, this is a tricky question, right? I do think, so in many ways this is a question about culture, right? So what's culture's impact on a group, an individual, a society? And there have been mixed results on this, specifically in relation to rap music. There's been some research that finds that when individuals continually listen to these lyrics, they in fact do ultimately end up having negative views of women, having negative views of other individuals. But then there's some research that says, but if this were the case, wouldn't we see the same trend with the movies that are coming out, the hyper-violent movies, the hyper-violent TV shows, right? So the question is not only limited to rap music, it's also limited to country music. So for example, there are some lyrics in country music where artists say, well, I shot him or her, right? So I do think, right, there is potentially a negative impact. I don't want to say it's causal. There might be some correlation somewhere for all you methods people out there, causality versus correlation. But I do think we have to look at other aspects of the culture as well, right? So if a very popular movie that I saw was The Matrix. There was a lot of shooting and killing in The Matrix. It was cinematically very beautiful. I can remember the scene where Neo was shooting this gun and the bullet pellets were dropping to the ground. It was beautiful, but it was violent, right? So the question becomes, even our action hero movies are violent, right? Some of the movies or TV shows that we see, there's degradation of women, there's degradation of other individuals. So my response to that question is that it's complex. And there may be some correlation, but I don't necessarily think there's causation. Then at the same time, how do we juxtapose that with supposedly the positive things that we see in the media, right? That is to say, should romance movies all lead us to be more connected with our significant others? Because there are a bunch of romance movies out there. All of Beyonce's songs about love, should that impact us in a positive way as well, right? And so it's really complex to say that there's sort of this linear relationship. But nevertheless, it's a good question.
I think that concludes our session tonight. I want to thank you, Dr. Oware, for a very enlightening talk and great responses to our alumni questions here. I appreciate you giving up one of your first summer evenings.
Yeah. Are there any questions in the audience?
Yeah, any questions here in the house?
Just in case?
Oh, sure.
Sure.
John Dittmer.
Thank you, Matthew. I learned a lot. You sort of talked around this, but I'm wondering, since the period of your intense study,
Yes.
in the lyrics that have come in the last 5 or 6 years,
Yes.
have you noticed, without a lot of analysis,
Yes.
any difference in the themes in terms of family, of children, of motherhood, or has it remained pretty consistent?
So yeah, you're right. I haven't done sort of a focused, detailed analysis, but from sort of my superficial listening of the music, there's still some of these themes there, but it's still in lower percentages. If I had to guess, it's still in much lower percentages than hypermasculinity, violence, etc.
The younger rappers are then following in the footsteps of the older rappers in terms of
When they were younger.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. But my expectation would be, as those rappers age, right, then they'll sort of lessen their references to those sorts of things. Yeah.
Question? Sure. Great. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Alyssa Harbert. I'm a professor of musicology now at DePauw. And I am curious if this tiny wedge of these rap songs,
Yes.
14% or something that
Right.
had references to family, positive or negative.
Right.
I'm curious if the ones that are positive about family, about wives, lovers,
Sure,
children,
sure.
have musical aspects in common. Are they all sort of sweet and slower, like Tupac's Dear Mama? Because I cannot imagine, I cannot imagine certain styles of rap having that kind of sweet, positive association, but then there are always the slower tracks every now and then.
Interesting. Yeah, very interesting question. No, in fact, they're not slower, right? So the thing is, they're saying these lyrics, these sort of caring, touching lyrics, in the same breath that they're saying hypermasculine, violent lyrics. So all of these things are within the same songs, right? And so the beat is faster, right? So Dear Mama, in the particular sense of being an ode to Tupac's mother, really kind of stands out, right? Because of the slowness of it, because of the tone. But overall, in the songs that I sample, it's still fast. It's still, if you want to call it, the music is still sort of hard, abrasive, right? Bang, right, yeah. Good question.
Any other questions here in the house? All right. Thank you again, Dr.
Thank
Oware.
you
This
all.
was great.
Bye-bye, alumni. Thank you, sir.
I really appreciate
Thank you for inviting me. This is fun.
Yeah,
This
really
is
was.
fun.
We should do it again.
Okay.